Do you hate reloading? Do you view your engineer buildings more as meat shields to keep you alive than assets to help your team? Are you the sort of player who will aggressively charge into the other team regardless if the class you're playing was meant to do so in the first place? If you said yes to any of the following, I have the guide for you. How yinz doing? I'm Ian, and this is my TF2 How to Kill Streak series, where we look at the best and worst TF2 has to offer, and I show you how to get a kill streak with it, because everything is a bad idea until it works. Today, as you could tell by reading the title of this video, we'll be covering the Widowmaker. So without further ado, let's get into it.
What kind of defense is this?
I am the defense!
The Widowmaker is a very simple weapon to understand, at least on paper. It requires 30 metal per shot to fire, meaning you'll have to decide between managing your buildings as engineer and shooting your opponents with your primary weapon with this thing. To compensate for this inconvenience, you actually don't have to reload with this weapon whatsoever. More importantly, you also gain metal based on how much damage you deal with this weapon. This means that you can actually gain metal by simply landing your shots consistently at medium to close range. These two bonuses combined mean that the Widowmaker can theoretically fire indefinitely so long as you can stay alive and find targets to hit with this thing. You also gain 10% damage against targets who are being targeted by your sentry, which can be useful if your sentry runs out of ammo, you haven't had time to upgrade it past level 1 yet, or if you're using the gunslinger. However, the majority of the time, if both you and your sentry are shooting the same person, they're gonna die regardless if you had this 10% damage buff or not. If you want this weapon for yourself, it can be crafted by combining 2 reclaimed metal and a l'étranger. However, I recommend just trading or waiting for a random drop if you wish to acquire one. When using the Widowmaker, I strongly advise using the pistol over your other secondaries. This is because the engineer's other secondaries compete very heavily with the Widowmaker for metal use. The short circuit is actually the most egregious of the 3 options you have in terms of metal competition, since it also requires metal to fire like the Widowmaker, resulting in all 3 of your weapon slots effectively requiring the same ammo to use to their fullest potential. Meanwhile, the Wrangler requires you to have a sentry built in at the ready in order to be able to do anything. This only serves to further exacerbate the Widowmaker's metal management needs. When it comes to choice of melee with the Widowmaker, you have 2 noteworthy options. The Gunslinger is the most obvious of these 2, since it increases your max HP and swaps out your normal sentry for a mini sentry, making metal management far easier for the engineer. Another more unorthodox option you can use is the Eureka effect. Yes, when using this wrench, you will gain less metal from ammo packs and dispensers. However, your teleporters will cost less to build, saving you metal. And your primary weapon will allow you to refill your metal pool whilst your buildings build. This means if you use the Widowmaker to restock your ammo supply whilst your buildings build, instead of hitting it with your wrench to speed up their build time, the Eureka effect effectively doesn't have any downsides attached to it if you're playing to that specific playstyle. And even if you don't, you can always just teleport between your teleporter exit and spawn with Eureka Effect's other ability, which allows you to do exactly that with the reload key. Not exactly the most optimal of loadouts, but if you want to try something different from the engineer norm, there you go. Something you don't want to forget about when playing with the Widowmaker is damage falloff. If you want to shoot at someone from across the map, you better switch to your pistol or get ready to run out of metal real fast, cause that's what's gonna happen. And remember, even if your ammo pool is functionally endless, so long as you can land your shots, your HP is not. So unless you got a pocket medic, don't go charging in there without the element of surprise. Your aim might be good, but you're still not going to be able to win a head-on fight against a heavy 1v1. Because while the Widowmaker might be a fun weapon, it's sure as hell not a forgiving one. This weapon plays to its own rules relative to the other shotguns, and it will not be shy about telling you what those are. Sure, you don't have to reload with this thing whatsoever. However, you can't afford to whiff your shots like you could with the other shotguns. And that's why everyone and their mother recommends that you use the pistol when using this primary weapon, since you can run out of metal and not be completely screwed so long as you have the pistol equipped. And I don't care how good you think you are at this game, you're going to run out of metal at some point. After all, you only have 200 metal in your inventory at most at any given time, meaning you can build a level 1 sentry and fire the Widowmaker once, before running out of metal. And I don't care how good you think you are at aiming, there's only one kind of person who never misses a shot, and that's a bot. You are going to miss a shot every now and then, and it will cost you your life if you don't have a plan B at the ready. I don't care if you hate the idea of using a stock weapon for some reason. You have to use these 2 in conjunction with each other or you're gonna be in for a bad time. you don't want to use stock weapons whatsoever, pick a different primary. And the same goes for turtling engineers. If your plan is to sit on a dispenser while you whack at your sentry all day, this weapon is not going to help you in any capacity. Don't even waste your time with it. The Widowmaker is best suited for engineer players who can consistently win 1v1 fights in a game, but are getting picked off whenever they have to reload. So if you're the kind of engineer who can consistently get behind the enemy team and start shooting at clueless players who don't realize you're even shooting at them until it's too late, then the Widowmaker is unquestionably the best primary for you. However, if you're the kind of engineer player who doesn't really shoot their primary weapon very often and prefers to focus on building up their buildings, the Widowmaker is not necessarily the best weapon you could be using. All in all, I give the Widowmaker a hyper-aggressive out of 10. Because that's what the Widowmaker does best. It's a tool for people who want to go on epic kill streaks to keep that ball rolling by not needing to reload whatsoever. So long as you understand that your health is not infinite and needs to be replenished every now and then and know when and where to retreat from a fight when you know you can't win, as well as being able to correctly identify which fights you can win and which ones you can't, you'll find that the Widowmaker is more or less a straight upgrade from stock in many situations. However, since the Widowmaker relies on the same resource you use to build your buildings, it's not going to always be a straight upgrade. Sometimes you need to be able to build your buildings and shoot opponents at the same time. And in these situations, the Widowmaker will let you down every single time. That will be all for now. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one, comment what weapons you want to see me cover in the future, and consider joining my fan club where for $1 a month, you'll gain access to previews of my future projects as well as early access to my videos. And if you want to vote on what weapons I cover in the future, remember to check out my community tab polls. No, not tadpoles, I mean tab polls. If you head to the community section of my channel, you'll actually see that I hold votes consistently on what weapons I'll cover next once the one I'm currently working on is completed. These votes often have less than 100 people voting on them, so you can often make a significant difference by adding your own vote to these polls. This means if you decide to go to my community section on my channel and vote on what weapon I cover next, you'll be making up a little less than 1% of the vote most likely. But I think I've dragged this video out long enough to get mid-rolls on it, so let's stop wasting everyone's time here. I've been Ian, you have been you, and this has been my TF2 How to Killstreak guide to the Widowmaker. And stay tuned, the Enforcer is coming up next.